Filmmaking covers a variety of genres, and during the 1990s, one in particular saw a resurgence: the big budget disaster flick.
It's coming! It's headed right for us! It's already here.
For two science-obsessed kids growing up on opposite sides of Pennsylvania, nothing left a bigger impression than Twister.
The suck zone.
I think we're going in!
Join Kelly and Joe as they dissect the second highest grossing film of 1996,
Debris! Dusty, we have debris!
Debris!
minute by minute,
Another cow!
Actually, I think that was the same one.
and relive one of their favorite movies of all time.
No, that was a good-sized Twister. What was that, an F3?
Solid F2.
Tornado warning continues now.
All right, well, hello, and welcome to the very first episode of Solid F2, a minute-by-minute breakdown of the movie Twister. I am one of your hosts, Joe, and sitting next to me is my wife, Kelly.
Hi.
So why Twister? Why did we pick this one to start with our first ever podcast together?
We're weather nerds.
Is that the only reason?
It's a basic reason.
That's the main one for you?
Yeah.
So, what was your first exposure to Twister? Do you remember going to see it in the theater?
No, I'm not sure I did. I remember very clearly going to see Jurassic Park in the theater. And you would think that this would have had the same impact on me if I saw it in the theater. So I'm going to say no. But
Do you remember the first time you saw the movie then?
no.
You have no idea when the first... Do you know... was it something that you watched with your parents, your sister?
I would imagine it's something that we watched, we rented on a family movie night or something like that, and then
The good old Blockbuster did
Yeah.
you well?
Yep. My well, we didn't have a Blockbuster.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was your
In a
choice?
good old 84 Pennsylvania, we had the local video shop, which was later in life became a music studio where I took guitar lessons.
Ah,
But for the beginning part of my life, it was a little video store. And Amy and I used to go in there, and my dad would take us in, and they had rows and rows, and it was much smaller and more cave-like
okay.
than a
Is
Blockbuster
it
was.
similar to the one we used to frequent in State College?
More cave-like.
More cave-like, okay.
Think of like if a hobbit hole became a video rental place, became a guitar studio.
You mentioned Hobbit Hole. It's a good thing Nick's not here, or he would have started reciting the book. So, Twister, I'm surprised that I didn't know you didn't see it in the theater. As
If I did, I don't remember it. It was a lifetime ago.
before we dive into the first minute, we're doing these little introductions, and I guess we should point out, obviously, that we're married and we have been together for a
We
long
are?
time. Yes, I hate to break it to you now, but
Oh.
it's been that way for a long time now, nearly 11 years.
I guess that explains a lot.
Including the two children sleeping above our heads. Huh?
You think they're sleeping.
Well, I'm hoping they're sleeping.
One
They haven't
out-
come down to annoy us yet, so.
One out of the two of them, I bet, is sleeping. One of them is reading with a flashlight under her covers.
And, and at any given time, she could very well be reading about weather, though, so.
She's fascinated and terrified, though. I
Yeah.
think that's why she likes to read about it, because she is terrified.
I honestly can't say that I was much different at her age, though, because weather was very, very exciting. It was exhilarating. It was interesting, but it was also a little bit terrifying. I can't say the, thunder and lightning was an issue, but thinking about severe weather like tornadoes, definitely was a little unsettling for a young child. And even though we're from Pennsylvania, not exactly known for its tornadoes, not part of the alley in the Midwest and in the plains, but Pennsylvania gets its fair share of tornadoes. But growing up, we were always told we didn't have to worry about it because the mountains are mountains. would take care of that for us.
Well, I will say that I feel like growing up, I had better severe weather in western Pennsylvania, near Pittsburgh, where I grew up, than I get here. And I think it probably does have a lot to do with the mountain range in the middle of the state.
Oh yeah, obviously we know topography has a huge impact on weather, but the old wives' tale or your parents trying to quell your fears by saying, "Don't worry, those mountains, as central Pennsylvania, southwestern, southeastern PA, wherever you are, they won't let tornadoes come," isn't exactly the whole truth.
Oh, no. But it works to quell the fears of little ones for the
Oh yeah,
time being.
absolutely.
But, I miss the storms in western Pennsylvania. And we used to sit on our back porch and watch the storms roll out after they had already passed over us. And you could see lightning in the distance for hours afterwards when it was dozens of miles away. And you could just see the hot pink lightning flashing in the summer night sky. And Mom and I would get Klondike bars and a Scrabble board and sit out on the back porch and just watch the lightning. And I miss that because we just don't get it here like we had it there. But
No, we get our fair share, but I would say that generally when we look at the radar and the lightning maps, which, we're weather nerds, we do that fairly recently, especially, March through August, we're always pointing out things coming through Ohio and hitting the western Pennsylvania area. When we were together at Penn State and State College, I mentioned we're both married for over a decade now. We met together at Penn State at University Park. We both were, shockingly, if you're listening to a podcast about Twister, meteorology majors. We both got our undergraduate degrees from the Department of Meteorology at Penn State. Weather there wasn't super interesting. It was.
there were
We
a
saw
few
maybe
summer storms
there were
that
a few
we
summer storms
ran
and
from.
we enjoyed the occasional interesting winter activity, but it wasn't anything like what is shown in the movies or during storm season on the Weather Channel. But we did get to move to an area that was a little bit closer to that after we both graduated from Penn State. And
My favorite place.
well, you decided to get your graduate degree, your Master's of Science at Purdue University in West Lafayette, Indiana. And we spent close to 2 years in northwestern-ish, northwest of Indianapolis, not quite in the corner up towards Chicago. But we got to see some storms out there, and we actually got to hear tornado sirens, which was a first for me.
Yep.
We heard we were there about 22 months, just shy of 2 years, and we probably heard the sirens go off 4 or 5 times.
For actual storms, yeah. They
Yeah,
tested them every month.
Well,
but
sure, yeah. We heard a lot of tests, but we were there when they sounded them because, well, there was a tornado warning and there were tornadoes on the ground while we were there. Now, I don't think we were ever really super close. In fact, the ones that were close to us, we actually had moved farther away.
Well, the one instance I remember quite clearly is us being in a bar
Right.
when the sirens were going off, and we're looking around sort of thinking like, should we get in our car and go home? You're not supposed to go out and drive during a storm like that, but the place that we were in, the whole front of it was plate glass. The whole back of it was one giant mirror with all the glasses hanging there that you would expect in a bar that serves wine and martinis and all that stuff. That was just, and I was like, well, this doesn't feel like a good place to be either if wind starts whipping shit around.
That's the one that I'm alluding to as well, but what I was saying is our apartment was actually closer to the touchdown than the restaurant we were at.
I think we were like 5 miles at the restaurant and
yeah.
about like 2 miles from
yeah.
from our apartment.
We would have been closer had we been at our apartment at the time. I remember another time where they were going off, and we lived on the first floor, really the ground floor. We were down in the ground, so we were at the place we needed to be, and we opened the door, and there were other people that had come down from the higher levels, and we're like, you want to come in here and not stand out in the hallway with giant glass out by the mailboxes? But that was really, it was something interesting for us at the time because we had obviously gone through at least 4 years of higher education related to meteorology, and you were pursuing your atmospheric science degree. So, we knew what was going on. We knew what to expect. We knew what to do and what not to do.
I do want to cut in here and say that I did not study severe weather in graduate
No.
school. I studied atmospheric chemistry, but we did have the severe weather courses. We understood the atmospheric dynamics and the physics of what was happening, and we certainly learned enough about it in undergraduate. But that wasn't the focus of my studies.
No.
So that's not why we went to Indiana. That was just the only place I applied to grad school. So that's where I went.
Well, but it was also your top choice. After people said try not to, they encouraged you to branch out and not stay just at Penn State, because I think we both were hoping to maybe stay at Penn State. But, I think advisors and references were saying branch out, meet new people, experience new things, go different places. I think you would say bull crap on that, and you wish you would have done another 2 years at Penn State. But
Yeah, and it doesn't have anything to do with the people there. They were
right.
good people, but Purdue felt like it was trying to be Penn State and failing. How many red brick buildings do you need on a campus? And if in the middle of January, it is so cold that it makes my eyes water,
It was
and then
very
the
cold,
tears
yeah.
come out of my eyes, and then when I blink,
They
they freeze,
freeze.
and I have my eyelashes freezing together. It's a problem. It's a problem, and I don't care for it. I don't miss it.
I mean, nothing can compare to Penn State. So they're on a pedestal, and it's tough to live up to them. And Purdue, as a grand experiment, didn't do that. But like you mentioned, we met a lot of nice people there. You learned a lot. You got your degree. It was very well received. And I got to work in the climate office, which was a lot of fun. Dr. Niyogi, I just, when you said I'm got accepted to Purdue and I'm going to go, I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to do grad school. And
how did I convince you,
and
Joe?
you very much wanted me to come with you. But my concern was employment, just coming out there, not doing anything, not being associated with the university as a student. I wasn't sure what to do. So I just emailed the state climatologist that happened to be on the Purdue campus, just like the Pennsylvania state climatologist was on the Penn State campus. I just said, hey, I have my undergrad, I have my bachelor's of science in meteorology. I've been working in the Pennsylvania state climate office for a few years now. My well, at the time, girlfriend, because we weren't even engaged yet at the time that I was emailing him. We were soon to be engaged. She's coming out, going to be master's program, and is there a spot available? And much to my surprise, he said yes. Let's talk a little bit about it. And I remember telling you and how excited you were to think that I was going to be coming out with you while you pursue that degree, which is what happened. I came out week to 10 days I think after you.
Yeah, about 2 weeks
and
after.
then we were out there for almost 2 years. But a lot of weather-related stuff, like we already mentioned with your degree, and the tornadoes. And I got to do a lot of climatology, and I gave presentations around the state, and it was a lot of fun, a lot of cool experience. Not applying it myself anymore in my career, but
Neither am I.
we're still very, very interested in meteorology and weather at large. And now at least one of our daughters is very interested in it as well. Even though she may be a little bit terrified of some of the more extreme stuff, she's still very interested in science, and weather is definitely at the top of her list. But going back to Twister, and from someone, even going back to our time at Penn State, someone that was pursuing a meteorology degree, I feel like the movie had two areas inside meteorology circles. It was people that grew up with it and always idolized it because it was something that you were interested in. You got to see a movie about it, and then there were others that were like, well, none of that is accurate, kind of like looking down upon it. You and I are obviously in the camp where it came out when, we were, 11, 12 years old. It was very exciting. I remember seeing the trailers and the posters for it, and just how amped up I was to be able to go and see it. But there definitely were detractors and people that just kind of brush it off, both in and outside of the scientific community. But to me, films are just forms of entertainment. It doesn't have to always be 100% accurate. And I love the film, and we're going to get into that here shortly. But what do you think about when people kind of deride it for its scientific accuracy? Or
I say the same thing that I say anytime critics don't like a movie that I enjoy. If it entertains me, I don't really care about the Oscar potential or the deep down scientific validity of it. If I enjoy watching it, if it has a good soundtrack, which I think Twister has a rockin' soundtrack,
yes,
then I'm gonna watch it. And I think a lot of it is nostalgia for me, as most of my top 5 favorite movies are. None of them are recent.
right.
I think that it probably planted the seed for me as a kid to want to pursue meteorology, because I did go to school thinking, I'm going to be a storm chaser. That sounds kick ass. Like, I'm going to do that now. That didn't last.
There was an opportunity we discussed going on a summer trip to Oklahoma
Yep.
and the area.
And it's, I would still love to do it. It's not that. It's just, at some point in your college career, fairly early on for me, practicality set in.
Right. Yeah.
And so we chose foci. We chose to focus on.
There you go. Reorder. Move things around.
We chose to focus on specialties within the umbrella of meteorology that were a little more universal.
Right.
And,
Right. Because you went into the atmospheric science aspect of it, and that's where you ended up doing your master's at Purdue was specifically in atmospheric science or atmospheric chemistry. Was that specifically?
I don't remember. It was, I think it's the master's degree is just atmospheric science, but I was in
You were working
the chemistry
in
department.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I was in the earth and atmospheric sciences, but my advisor was the head of the chemistry department. We were doing atmospheric chemistry. I studied pollution that came off of big urban areas and how it related to climate change.
And I'd say, tell me about your plane rides and data collection, but I don't think you want to revisit that, so
No.
we can move on. Before we dive into this first minute here, there's not a lot to talk about. That's why we're doing a long introduction and just vamping a little bit here, because there's not even dialogue in the first minute.
Vamping.
So, hey, I'm a pro. I've been doing this for a while. I know how to vamp.
Vamping.
Yes, vamping. Would you like me to spell it?
I think I can spell it.
Okay.
It's not going to stop me picturing you as like Edward Cullen.
No, not that kind of vamping.
I get it. I'm just saying.
Am I sparkling? Am I sparkly?
A little bit.
Okay, it's
We have kids.
yes,
We have girls.
yes.
There's a lot of glitter.
Do you think that loud noise was a cat or a kid?
I'm going to go with cat, but I'm going to take a moment to check
You check on them, and
camera.
I will just say that while we both chose meteorology, obviously, we both have the Bachelor of Science from Penn State in that field, but going into college or towards the time that you were considering colleges, I know you were also very much interested in astronomy, and
yes.
it shouldn't be a surprise then that one of your favorite movies, and I don't know, maybe coincidentally or something that shouldn't be a shock to anyone that ends up getting married, is I also share in the love for Apollo 13, which we just watched about a week ago and celebrated the 50th anniversary of that event over the past week. And you mentioned already Jurassic Park being a huge influence and one of your loves. So that is your top 3 essentially right there.
Yes.
Is Twister, Apollo 13, and Jurassic Park. And
I will say I don't think Twister is number 1.
oh no, I'm not saying it's number 1. It's not number 1 for me either, but it's
top.
always in there. It's very, the list fluctuates often, and I don't know that I could do anything but a top 25 is generally where I have to go when it comes to movies and TV shows. It's not something that I want to narrow down, and my interests, they change. So over time, I'm all Ghostbusters,
Really?
Star Wars, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, like all that kind of stuff comes into play, in addition to the ones that we enjoy to watch together that aren't necessarily part of a franchise. Although Jurassic Park is certainly trying.
Nothing beats the original.
No, nothing. That is one of the greatest movies ever made.
I will say, you've named my top 3.
Right.
2 out of those 3 written by Michael Crichton.
Yes. Did you know that before I pointed it out when we watched the movie a week ago that
No.
Michael Crichton had a writing credit on Twister? Because I had no idea.
No, I did not.
I
I
did-
did not know. He didn't just have a writing credit.
Was he the sole writer? I thought
He
there was.
and his wife wrote it,
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Okay.
as I
Wow.
learned 10 minutes ago.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Good preparation as we
Yeah.
dive into this movie. Now, you mentioned the soundtrack, and we're going to get it into on a future episode, and maybe we'll split up the minutes that we talk about after maybe a half an hour. Maybe we'll do a special episode talking about just the music or the score. But they're both very, very well done. Well, should we dive into the first minute?
Sure.
Not a lot to talk about, but we'll give it a listen, and we'll check it out.
Am I allowed to talk while you play this?
Well, I would say generally we listen to it first, then we talk about it.
You make the rules. I'm just checking. I'm not allowed to talk.
That's why we're going to watch it again and talk about it.
Okay. But what if I forget my thoughts before?
Do you want to just talk?
Kind of, but I think you're going to get mad at me.
All right, and there you have it. That is the first minute of Twister. So not a lot of information there for us. You get the ominous music. You get the title, which blows away. We see that we're starting in 1969, and you just kind of get a setting that you're somewhere in the plains of the United States. That's all the information you get in the first minute. So I will rewind it back, and we'll watch it again so that we can make sure we get all your thoughts as they were coming to you, okay?
I can talk this time?
You can talk. You can talk as much as you want. So, blank screen. We get to see Warner Brothers. It is a Time Warner movie.
Yep. That makes me think of Harry Potter right there.
Yes, very much so. But this would actually be the OG version of that. So Harry Potter kind of ripped off Twister. So,
Okay. I like this eerie sound until it becomes growly. You lose me there. You know why?
you don't think Twister's growl?
I don't think twisters growl, but I also know that they used camels to make that sound,
Oh, okay.
and so it loses me a little.
Camels.
Camel.
That's interesting. That's a...
Like, I could have accepted, all right, a twister growls like a tiger. I'm on board.
Well, I kind of thought that's where it was going. Like that
Nope.
kind of...
Camel. Also, that squeak of that oil rig thing sounds like a garage door opening.
So...
Most of my comments are about sound editing.
Right, apparently. So that first minute, not a lot to discuss. That's kind of why we did the prolonged introduction.
Do they have oil rig thingies like that in Oklahoma?
You're asking the wrong person there.
They haven't done any research on this.
Well, not on the occurrences of oil rigs in Oklahoma. I do not know. I didn't think it was just a Texas thing.
I don't know. I always imagined it was a Texas thing, but I guess oil doesn't stop at the border.
What's your favorite part? The growl.
They just use it a lot. I remember thinking as a child, like, oh my god, the special effects. You know, and then you watch it as an adult, you're like, yikes.
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously going to talk about special effects a lot as we go through this minute by minute because, well,
It's a
You
big
can't-
budget disaster movie.
right, and you can't realistically shoot a movie in front of a real twister. I think
You can't.
the lawyers would be pretty upset about that. You know, I don't think it's feasible.
Feasible.
What is with you and my word choice?
I don't know. You don't normally talk like this on any given day.
This is my podcasting.
Yeah, I don't love it.
Why not?
I don't know. A little pretentious.
They're pretentious.
A little bit.
I'm trying to sound smirt.
Pretentious?
No.
Smirt. S-M-R-T.
S-M-R-T.
Yeah.
What else about the first minute of the movie?
There's not much to say
I
about
know.
it.
That's why I wasn't sure if there were, you said you had a lot to say, so
I said it.
Okay. I remember going to see this movie in the theater. I went, I would say, maybe about 3 to 4 weeks after it came out. I think this is all a guess. It certainly wasn't an opening night thing. I didn't see it that opening weekend, I don't believe. I did see it on a school night. I know that for a fact. I did see it very late at like somewhere between 9 and 10 o'clock at night, I believe it began, because I clearly remember I was in bed, not asleep yet, but in bed, just probably TV on with the Weather Channel, just white noise as I try to go to sleep. And my dad opened my bedroom door and told me to get dressed because he was taking me to the movie theater. And he and I went to a very late showing of a movie on a school night. That's the biggest thing that I remember from the movie is...
You had a cool dad.
Well, that was certainly out of the ordinary. Not for my dad, because my dad and I went to see movies, not all the time, but we saw plenty of movies together. But that it was on a school night and we were going to a late movie, that just... I'll never forget that. I don't know the date. I don't know exactly if it was mid-May when it came out or if it was closer to June when it had been out for a while. But my dad took me, and I remember walking in to the theater, and we sat in one of the back rows because we were walking in like as this scene was like, we didn't see the previews. We walked in and we had just like seen this opening moment because I definitely got to see the minutes leading up or coming after this in the theater.
Camels.
I was like, that does sound like camels to me, camels. But yeah, the special effects at the time, I remember a lot of people saying, "Oh, that was super cool." A lot of people saw this movie. This was, I don't know if blockbuster is the right word.
Oh, yeah.
You think it is?
Yeah, people saw it for the special effects.
Okay, and it was,
because at the time,
slightly early for that summer window, because generally you think of Memorial Day through like the 4th of July as being the prime time, huge summer movie, because this came out May 10th. But it ended up being the second highest grossing film of the year, only behind Independence Day. Now, it trailed it by a lot. Independence Day absolutely took over the cinema that summer.
Now, if this was like an alien tornado, it might have topped it.
So
like Sharknado.
So take Independence Day and Twister and put them together.
Yeah. Like.
What would you call it? Alienado? Is that the best we can do?
No. I don't know. Don't put me on the spot. I can't
Okay.
just think of it.
All right, well, when we come back to do...
But that would be the best of both worlds, because you get Helen Hunt, Bill Paxton, and then you throw in a little... what's his face? From Independence Day, not Will Smith, but
Ian Malcolm?
Jeff Goldblum. Yeah, Ian Malcolm, exactly. Throw in a little Jeff Goldblum talking about how nature finds a way.
We're obviously going to have a lot to say about the actors, but I was just I think we'll save that until they make their debut, and we'll all have done a lot more research about them individually. I wasn't really prepared to do research on the first minute because there wasn't much to see, but of course you one-upped me with your camels, and knowing that Michael Crichton wrote it with his wife, which that I did not know. So good information. First minute, great movie, Twister, directed by Jan de Bont.
Mm-hmm.
I had to research the
pronunciation.
Dutch way to say his name, because it's written, if you're going to butcher it in American English, it's Jan de Bont, but it's Jan de Bont.
He left a movie.
He also directed another movie that is incredibly fun and overachieved at the box office, but he also had some not so good ones. Also. Do you know what other movie he directed prior to Twister?
Speed.
Yes.
Yes, and
It's called The Bus That Couldn't Slow Down.
I'm glad they shortened it to Speed, because that was not great. Sandra Bullock, also fantastic.
Yes, absolutely. 100% agree.
And you know I love that movie as well because it was on.
Yeah, you stayed up
like a
till
month
like
ago.
midnight on a work day just
I
to
was
watch
like, well, I'm
Speed.
not turning off Speed. I haven't seen it in like 20 years.
But then you
so-
did, and you came back the next day, and it was at like the exact spot that you had. Oh no, you watched the end and you missed the beginning, and you came home and got to watch the beginning.
Yes.
And then I was like, well, you saw from here on out now last night, and you're gonna go to bed, and you're like, no, I'm gonna finish the movie.
Obviously.
Jan de Bont junkie.
Yeah, but Jan de Bont, I want to find the information because he left a movie to do. Oh. I was
Well, he also did Speed too, but
I know, but I actually have to remind me. I have fun facts for the casting of this movie when you want to talk more.
yeah,
about the people that
when
were
we
in it.
get to those characters, it's gonna take us about 10 minutes though.
Just don't let me forget because
Add it to the list.
I gotta write it down.
You
Frankly,
gotta write it down.
I'm never gonna find my fun fact on Jan de Bont, but he actually like quit a movie to go work on Twister. But I
Oh,
can't,
really?
I don't remember which one it was.
Well, we'll come back for episode 2, and you can have your fun fact for Jan de Bont.
I won't
okay.
remember by then, but fine.
Well,
Who?
I think you will. I
What?
think you will. All right. So that is the end of episode 1 of Solid F2 podcast, and I'm not sure we ever mentioned the title other than in passing at the beginning. If you've seen the movie, you know what we're referencing. It was tough to come up with a title, and I just kind of pulled that from the quote.
You didn't like my suggestion, so I don't know what you want me to do.
Well, we'll get to that one when we get to it. Yeah, there's a bunch of options because there's a lot of great quotes from Twister, especially if you're fans like we are. But I thought Solid F2 was a subtle nod to a quote from the movie, but also is related to tornadoes. And some of the other ones were maybe a little bit too on the nose, but I don't know. It's what we're rolling with. So
Mine wasn't on the nose.
no, yours was elsewhere in the gutter as usual. So, anything to say before we go?
No, you're driving this bus. That can't slow
And
down.
it won't slow down. All right, so that's the end of episode 1 of Solid F2, and we'll be back again for episode 2 and the second minute of the movie Twister.